Hey guys. So I this is something I actually prepared a bit ago, like a while ago. We've just had so much going on. So this is called The Offense of the Cross. I will have the Google Doc linked in the description box below. Unfortunately, this time I do have all of the reference scripture verses hyperlinked. However, I don't have them printed out at the end. But if you download the Google Doc, you can click on the hyperlink. It'll take you right there in Blue Letter Bible to the scripture references. Okay, so here we go. For us as believers, all of the Old Testament points towards New Testament identification truths. We're to read the Old Testament in light of New Testament present truth, according to 2 Peter 1:12. The Old Testament is full of types and shadows of the church, which was a mystery until the ascended Christ revealed it to the Apostle Paul. With this in mind, let's look at Cain and Abel. Remember, we're looking at all of this Old Testament story through the lens of the present truth regarding the church. Regarding the story of Cain and Abel, I'm sure Cain had good intentions when he presented his offering to God. I'm sure Cain thought God would be pleased by all the effort he put forth in growing his produce. Never mind that his offering came from the cursed ground. You see, Cain had not agreed with God's judgment, God's curse, not only on the ground, but on all of creation. I'm sure Cain thought that his useless eater brother Abel was lazy because Abel just looked after the flock all day. And they didn't even eat meat back then, so Abel's job probably seemed counterintuitive to Cain. However, as we all know, God showed favor on Abel's offering and not on Cain's. As a result, I'm certain that Cain was surprised that his toil and labor wasn't even acknowledged, and how Abel, in contrast, just sat there tending the flock, doing nothing productive, yet received God's approval? Well, therefore, Cain was offended, and we all know how that turned out. You see, ever since the fall, the old man has been ensnared by the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Ephesians 2:3, 1 Peter 1:14, and 1 John 2:16. From their cursed flesh and apart from the vine, which is Christ, present-day legalists think that their seemingly well-intentioned goals of increasing Bible knowledge, cussing less, acting more Christ-like towards others, and tithing will help them gain favor with God. Yeah, good luck with that. Cain's mindset was likewise on those same foolish notions. God helps those who help themselves. Well, just as Cain rejected God's judgment on the flesh, when we, in today's day and age, speak Christ himself as food and drink and as the supply for the entire Christian life, modern day Pharisees, in their disgust, murmur about how our speaking Christ and him crucified is teaching others a license to be lazy and to sin, just as Cain thought Abel was lazy and useless. As such, the religious crowd becomes steeped in offense, just as Cain became exceedingly angry. The religious crowd is ignorant of God's righteousness and seek to establish their own righteousness and have not submitted themselves into the righteousness of God, according to Romans 10:3. The cross is repugnant to legalists because Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth, Romans 10:4. And they've not agreed with God that all of their best efforts, even their efforts to please God, are filthy rags, according to Isaiah 64:6 and Romans 3:19 through 23. They give lip service to Romans 3, which talks about how there is none righteous, no, not one. See Romans chapter 3, verses 10 through 12. But they fail to realize that their hidden sins are no less grievous to God than other people's seemingly more abominable public sins. The answer isn't work more work harder, do better, do more. No. The answer is Christ alone. Period. Nothing more, nothing less. The flesh is the totality of who we are, not just the bad parts, but also the seemingly good parts. Yes, even the desire to be more godly, because even that is the lust of the flesh. Eve's taking of the forbidden fruit due to her desire to be more godly was fueled by her not reckoning on the fact that she already had everything pertaining to life and godliness, all freely given to her by God already. Her desire to do something to add to her godliness was out of fleshly lust. He that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. Galatians 6:8. Cain reaped corruption, as did the Pharisees in Jesus' day, and as are our modern day Pharisees, when refusing to reckon on and rest in the killing power of the cross. Colossians chapter 2, verses 11 through 14. The cross provokes those who have not agreed with God's judgment on the flesh. Abel agreed with God's judgment on the flesh and on all creation, including God's judgment on the ground when he cursed it. And by faith, he, Abel, offered blood, which pointed toward the hope of the seed of the woman who would give himself for the world and become the last Adam, according to 1 Corinthians 15:45. Without faith, no one can please God, according to Hebrews 11:6. When you haven't agreed with God's judgment on all of your flesh, you won't rest by faith in your death with Christ. Cain was outraged because he had not agreed with God's judgment on the flesh, including his good intentions. Self-effort leads to wrath, according to Romans 2:5, chapter 3:20, and chapter 4, verse 15. Because God will never acknowledge anything that is not of faith, according to Romans 4:15 and Galatians 3:12 through 14. The spirit of offense is fueled by pride, which causes us to shrink back from God. It is of the flesh, and anything of the flesh is contrary to God. Pride keeps us from running boldly to the throne room. Hebrews 4:16, 10:19, and 10:22 through 23. Romans chapter 8, 15 through 17, and Ephesians chapter 3, verse 12. All right, guys, be blessed.